Good morning and happy hump day, folks. And you know what? It's fitting that what I'm about to talk about is happening on a Wednesday, considering the time of year. But I'll get to that in a second. So, let's see. My low, my high, my act of kindness. My low is, well, here's the thing. My low and my high are intertwined. And that's tonight, my family and I are actually going to go to the Swiss for dinner. Tomorrow's 4th of July up in Cuba Lake, so it makes sense to go. But we're going to wait for my mom to get out of work, and we made the reservation for 8:30. And considering how popular getting all-you-can-eat crab legs is, I'm really worried that they're going to run out by the time we get there. I mean, don't get me wrong. Here's the thing. If it was any other Wednesday, I would be okay with it. But it's July 3rd. For those of you who don't know, July 3rd only falls on a Wednesday, at best, every 5 years. In fact, it was 5 years ago today that I actually tried the all-you-can-eat crab legs at the Swiss for the very first time. My family would go to Waterfront back when it was open. And they loved that more, but I'm like, the Swiss is only a mile away, why don't we just go there? So I went myself, it was phenomenal, and I've been waiting literally years for this, quite literally 5 years, for today to happen again. So, well, obviously I went by myself. The goal would be to bring more than just, myself. So, yes, we are going tonight. I really am excited. In fact, one of my acts of kindness yesterday was making the reservation, as well as taking out the garbage, emptying the dehumidifier, and emptying the dishwasher. I did a lot of stuff for my folks yesterday, and helping my folks watch my nephews too, which I got to see, which is also part of my high. But my low is I am just fretting on the possibility of it's going to be very late tonight when we get dinner, and the thing I want is not going to be available. And it's something I've waited 5 years to do. Yeah, you'd be pretty upset too. Which would be a great way to kick off the 4th of July weekend, which, you know what, how about we kick off 4th of July starting right now with this particular video. It's not often I actually do a video like this because you never really think, wow, we are officially halfway through the year. And again, today's Wednesday. We're halfway through the week. We are legitimately like half within a half. No, it doesn't make it a quarter of the year. Point is, I don't think you could have fallen on a better day of the week to do this video. Remember, 2024 is a leap year. We have 366 days. And if you ever actually take a look at a calendar, the official halfway mark through any given year is always on July 2nd. But that's during a 365-day year. It's 366 today, this year, so therefore today would mark the halfway mark. So, for all intents and purposes, we're halfway through 2024. And, I guess I could probably talk about how this whole calendar year has been so far. And try and be positive about it. Look, at this point, you guys already know. My grandmother died in April. And in a lot of ways, I'd rather not get into, that messed up this whole year for me. So, 1 week, at the time I was thinking it was nigh unsalvageable. But every so often, even before my grandmother died, good things would happen. It's just, it's not that they were few and far in between. In fact, they were, we'll say, a relatively common occurrence. Like, maybe at least once a month, something would, so I guess you could say it's a little bit far. But because of just how depressing some of the low points of 2024 have been so far, it really does feel like all the good stuff did happen few and far in between. But I'm not going to say listen, it's hard for me to say I'm grateful for my grandmother dying, but anything else that was annoying or bad that happened this year, I can at least say I learned something from it. I mean, I'd rather not talk about what happened back in February again, but I can say I learned from it. So this first half of 2024 has been kind of a mixed bag. I mean, listen, 2022 was pretty much depressing up until November of that year. So I like to think that it's at least better than 2022. And I knew I was never going to straight up recapture the magic that was 2023. Of course, even in 2023, you know what? Come to think of it, all the great stuff that happened in 2023 didn't happen until, during the latter half of that year. So, in a lot of ways, there's hope. There really is legitimate hope that 2024 really can be salvageable. And again, it's not to say that this first half has been completely awful. There's a lot of great things that happened. I mean, there's been spaghetti and card nights I've been to. Went to a gender reveal. I've been invited out to go places and see people, and literally ever since roughly last year, or late in 2022, I've gone out and done things on my own. And I did it all on my own. Honestly, that's the one constant from last year that's been pretty consistent. In a good way. I mean, for the most part, nothing truly eventful happens. At least not that often. But I'd never know unless I went. So on the whole, I would definitely say I'm grateful for the things that have happened so far this year. For the most part. I mean, even with my grandmother dying back in April, I mean, this isn't something I had just learned. This is actually something I already knew. But it was a reminder that no matter what happens, life still goes on. Whether we like it or not. I mean, there are some people I know who've lost someone else very special to them. And even now, I can still see some of the heartbreak in their eyes whenever they're probably thinking about it. I mean, I try and go with the saying of, a heavy loss, but not a critical one. And yeah, losing my grandmother was a heavy loss. But I would only say it was critical if I was completely dependent on, my grandmother being around or my family in general being around for everything I do. And I know that's completely untrue because I've done plenty of stuff on my own. I like to think that in the course of this year, for everything I've learned, I made some pretty smart decisions, having learned from what happened. And, I mean, I'm the kind of guy who takes himself way too seriously. I mean, I already have low self-esteem issues, so if something bad happens, even if it's clearly not my fault, I still feel really horrible. And believe me, I have been trying to work on that. Well, here's the thing. I've worked on it to the point where if it's like a minor thing, I'll think about it, but I won't like hark on it. Like, I'll feel annoyed, but not awful. Here, it's just a little bit in terms of, I had nothing to do with my grandmother dying. She died from getting sick from a stomach bug, and she just never really recovered. But she was my grandma, so I feel horrible. It's just hard. It's difficult. But the one thing, I've said I mentioned that I've been going out and doing stuff on my own, and that's been the one constant from last year that's been working, whether it's been an eventful evening or not. But I also have to give a shout out to the people in my life who genuinely made it better and even got me through some of the bad stuff. You guys at this point know who you are. And I couldn't express enough how grateful I am. In fact, we are literally coming up on 1 year to the day where I had decided I was just going to live my life in the gray. If you recall, at the end of July last year, that's what I resorted to doing as. My heart got completely shattered, and I believed I was never going to be happy ever again. But you know what? That would have been fine. I would have been content. I would have been present. I would have been there. I at least would have seen my nephews be able to grow up. That's something to look forward to. And I have been watching them grow up. And in spite of how, rambunctious and admittedly kind of rude my nephews are sometimes, I get to see that. And I will admit, and not just my nephews, but my whole family's in my life too. And, I can rest a little easier knowing that they're always going to be there. But at the same time, even I know I can't rely on my family forever. So, whenever I run into people I haven't seen in a long time, or I get invited to, do things, considering how far I've come, that legit makes it all worthwhile. I just kind of wish it happened a little more often. But it's a process. That's what this is. It is a process. And I gotta trust that the process works. There was a party that happened earlier in the month of June that I did get invited to. That would have been really cool if I was, but there was another party I got invited to later, and I had a great time. Again, it's a process. And regarding the former, I'm sure there's a logical explanation why I didn't get an invite. So I'm not fretting on that too much. Not to mention the party I did get invited to was so incredibly great, it's almost not even worth thinking about the former anymore. So, again, it's a process. So, and again, the one thing keeping me from saying that 2024 is already a bad year is because we still got another half to go. Literally the second half of 2024 is the 4th of July. That can't possibly be a bad day, right? Well, it shouldn't, but admittedly last year on 4th of July, it kind of brought up some... Honestly, 4th of July last year was only just the beginning of what I was going to feel like by the end of the month last year. But I couldn't have predicted how bad it would get. And I certainly couldn't have predicted what happened next. I get a certain call from a certain someone, invited me to a party, and the rest was history. We are almost 1 full year since that day. The day I told myself I was just going to be present. I was going to be there. I was never truly going to be happy, but that's fine. Because you know what? As long as I'm still standing, there is hope. And boy, were a lot of my hopes answered in over the last 11 months. It's just a shame that in the last 6 months, some pretty devastating things happened. On the top of that list would obviously be my grandmother dying. I mean, I know I just said it's a process, but sometimes the process takes a little longer to get through than you'd like it to. But it's natural. That's what it's natural. It's valid. At least my feelings are valid. And as long as I take things one day at a time, things can only go up from there if they're bad. But if they're good, you know what? You know why I say I'm humbled I made this video and I'm hoping we have a wonderful day? That's what Lokai is. It's remaining humble in good times and being hopeful in bad. This whole first half of 2024 has been nothing but Lokai for me. And as long as I keep up that mentality, I can expect some pretty good things to happen in this latter half of 2024. But right now, let's get through today. I mean, I mentioned I was fretting about the all-you-can-eat crab legs thing, but you know what? If it winds up being if I wind up not getting the crab legs I want, it's going to suck, but I will roll with the punches. I have to. I mean, I've been rolling with the punches so far this year, haven't I? So, once again, I am very humble I made this video for all of you guys to watch and enjoy for today. I'm hoping you have a wonderful, wonderful, wonderful Wednesday. And remember, if any of you guys want to talk or chat, I'm always going to be here to let me know. Take care and make good choices. 607 all day, baby.